How's it going, everyone? This is Paul Garcia of ProjectSpurs.com. This is the Project Spurs postgame report following the Spurs' opening season win against the Golden State Warriors, 129-100. Yes, you read that right. San Antonio scored 129 points against the pretty much what everyone would say is a favorite to win the title of the Golden State Warriors, who were held to just 100 points. This is very surprising considering that Las Vegas had predicted that the Golden State would win by 9.5 points just to start the day. So before we go into our post-game report, be sure to check out ProjectSpurs.com. Follow us on Twitter at ProjectSpurs and my account as well at Paul Garcia PS. So let's go ahead and go through some information regarding the game. First up, your top 3 Spurs performers. So if you did not watch the game, these are pretty much the guys that were the talk of the night, both on TV and on the interwebs, on social media. Kawhi Leonard sets a career high 35 points. He really showed that what Golden State's going to miss as far as having some rim protection, because they're basically a bunch of perimeter players outside of Draymond Green and Zaza Pachulia, who can't play too much because he can't shoot the ball, so he doesn't space out the offense that well. So Kawhi, he just lived at the free throw line, 15 of 15 free throws. Anytime Clay, Steph, even Draymond or Durant, he got them all in foul trouble. Not foul trouble, but he's so aggressive going around screens that he can just easily draw contact because of his muscle and how strong he is as far as defenders trying to hold him back. So he pretty much made a living at the free throw line. He showed his mid-range game, pull-ups and crossovers into pull-ups. He had some three-pointers, drove to the rim. He had 5 steals. There was one that was memorable where the second half he picks off Steph Curry, goes down, takes the ball down for a dunk, dunks the ball, gets right back on defense and gets another steal. 5 rebounds and then 3 assists, getting guys open. So Kawhi, it's the opening game of the season, and like LeBron James, he pretty much threw his name into the MVP candidacy just to start the season with that 35-point performance on opening night. And plus, he played in just 32 minutes. By like the 5-minute mark of the fourth quarter, they were up by so much, San Antonio, that Coach Pop pulled him out. So he needed to play a full 48. LaMarcus Aldridge, the other Spurs All-Star, also had a really good game. 26 points, 14 rebounds, a double-double. Now, the key here, why I put it in parentheses, was the offensive rebounds. Aldridge really made a living in here. We're going to talk about the offensive rebounds a little bit later, about how the Spurs use that as a great area to exploit the Golden State's weakness. So Aldridge scores 26 and 14 in 35 minutes. Him too, whether it was pick and pop action, getting open jumpers off Kawhi, or Parker penetration. He also did some low post moves against Draymond Green, Zaza, and then anytime he had some of the Warriors, little guys basically. And it was just more that Golden State could not keep him off the glass. Anytime Kawhi missed a shot, or Pau Gasol, or Tony Parker, somebody, Aldridge was there to clean up that rebound. Andrew Bogut's no longer there. He's a big guy. They lost Festus Ezeli. These are the guys that can usually make it a little bit difficult for Aldridge to get some rebounds. And now with Zaza, or when they play small, that super death line with the Warriors, Aldridge can basically feast on those boards. And I think that the real talk of the night was Jonathan Simmons, who really had a huge, basically coming out party to the NBA, because he played last year. He had some moments, but this was on the national stage. Everybody's gearing up for Golden State Tuesday night. It's game 1 of the season. And Simmons put his name on the map with that performance of 20 points on 14 shots, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and one pretty much highlight block in 28 minutes. There was a block where Curry, the Spurs turned over the ball, and Curry takes it down for a layup, and very reminiscent of what LeBron James did to Curry. Obviously, the stakes were higher for LeBron because it was the NBA Finals, but Simmons ran down and blocked Curry's shot from behind, a chase down block. Everybody was talking about it. He dunked on JaVale McGee just right before the game even ended. So Simmons really had a good game. It's thing to read about him is that it was a very surprising performance in this fact. He didn't play a lot in the core lineups for San Antonio during the preseason, during their 6 games. He was also injured, so that that could be accounted for. But Pop threw him into the fire tonight against Golden State, the number 1 basically expected seed, and he really put on a performance. Now he made 3 3-pointers, as I mentioned. That's not something he usually does, but if it's something he does for his game, then this all of a sudden becomes somewhere where, they definitely want Simmons and Kyle Anderson to have more responsibility this coming season. And I think that if he continues this, it's only 1 game like we said, but if he continues this can really be a way to get some growth, to get some athleticism, some defense in their lineups, rather than just having to rely on Manu Ginobili or Danny Green, who are kind of, Manu's a little bit restricted at the later part of his career, and Danny, is very more limited offensively than what Simmons can do. So if Simmons can start getting more regular season minutes, get more comfortable like he was tonight, he can really carve a good, solid rotation for himself in the lineup. And I am curious to see in the next Spurs game if Simmons will start at the 2, because tonight Kyle Anderson did, and Simmons was obviously the more productive player. So those were your Spurs 3 top performers for Tuesday's game. As far as offensively, the Spurs were all over the map considering, this is their first time rolling out this team with Pau Gasol starting. 48% field goal shooting. They made 12 threes, 50% shooting. They got to Kawhi got to the free throw basically 15 times. The Spurs as a team made 23 free throws. Passing, moving the ball, basically assisted on 53% of their makes, so 25 assists on 47 field goal makes. That was basically their average of last year, around 24, 25 assists a game. Didn't turn the ball over too much, just 14 turnovers considering it's a brand new squad. And the Warriors only got 15 points. Here was the real key right here, and this is something that the Warriors have to look at going forward in the season. San Antonio's bench outscored Golden State 54-16. Manu had over 10 points. Patty Mills had over 10 points. We talked about Simmons having a 20-point game, and then Dedmon, David Lee, even the Spurs end of the bench guys like Davis Bertans had a few points here and there. So it was just one game. You can't put too much in it, but the Warriors don't have a lot of scoring on that bench. Iguodala is not known as an elite scorer anymore at this part of his career. Sean Livingston, they had to rely on Pat McCall. He couldn't really hit tonight. David West, was just there for spot minutes. So they're going to rely a ton on their starting unit and with plus Iguodala. But if they can't get any bench scoring, that's something to watch for other teams to look at attacking Golden State. As we mentioned with the rebounds, San Antonio grabbed 21 offensive rebounds. So whether it was Gasol, Kawhi, Aldridge, anytime one of their guys missed a shot, they were there in the paint. And since Golden State played such small lineups, the Spurs always had an advantage. And that was key for San Antonio. 21 offensive rebounds. They outscored Golden State 24-4 in second chance points. So that's huge. That's something that it almost reminds you of the playoff series last year between San Antonio and Oklahoma City. You had Enes Kanter, Steven Adams just gobbling up rebounds left and right whenever Westbrook or Durant would miss. And that's kind of what San Antonio's now doing. Whenever Kawhi misses, Manu misses, whoever shoots the ball, Aldridge or Gasol or their Dedmon, they're all there to gobble up those rebounds. And, like I said, the Spurs walked into halftime with an 18-point lead, and they did not let up. Golden State did get it down to about, 8 at one point in the second half, but overall, San Antonio, pushed their lead to 29 by 5-6 minute mark. Steve Kerr had to pull his guys, and that was pretty much it. The Spurs went on to roll. Looking at the percentage of where their points came from, San Antonio actually had a really balanced game, but they scored from some very efficient areas. You look at the paint, 39% of their baskets, 50 points came from the paint. Their three-pointers we talked about, they made 12 of them, so 28% of their offense came from threes. The free throw line, Kawhi again, getting to that free throw line, being dominant. He really showed that very shark type attitude where he wasn't going to just settle for jumpers. If the team was bogging down on offense, they were having some possessions of no scoring. He got to the free throw line. He made it a determination. And look, the thing San Antonio is known for, the mid-range game, they didn't really shoot that too much. They only 15% of their offense their scoring came from the mid-range. So again, it's one game for other offense. It was obviously 129 points is a lot of points. But let's see if this carries on continuing in the season. Let's talk about the defense. Okay, so they held Golden State. Golden State 47% is actually pretty good for a team. But here's the key: the three-pointers. Golden State only made 7 of their 33 three-pointers. This is a team that's going to take a ton of threes this year, along with the Houston Rockets. And for San Antonio to hold them to just 21%, that's a really good mark for their defense. And Golden State did make 13 free throws. So, it's only obviously one game. They're gonna have hot and 3-point shooting teams do have hot and cold shooting nights. Tonight was one of those cold shooting nights. But the Spurs, have to get some credit too for not giving their preferred shooters their spots. We'll talk about that in a little bit, and kind of forcing some of the non-shooters to take those threes. As we mentioned, the rebounds were huge for San Antonio. They out-rebounded Golden State 55-35, and Golden State only grabbed 8 offensive rebounds. So wow, the Spurs kind of killed Golden State on the offensive boards. Since Golden State's so small, they couldn't really reap the benefits of that whenever they missed shots. One thing I do want to say is that according to SportVU's player tracking data, the Spurs had 71 rebound chances, and they actually pulled on 55 of those. So that's a huge mark that they were expected to grab some of these rebounds, and they really got them. And that doesn't favor well for Golden State going forward in these kind of matchups against bigger teams who play 2 traditional bigs. They forced the Warriors into 16 turnovers for 17 Spurs points. It's like I said, it's a new team. The Warriors probably weren't expecting it. 16 is actually not too high. When if it was like 20, 25, that would be a lot of turnovers. So 16 is not bad. It's manageable for the Warriors. And then a key here for San Antonio was their transition defense. They really got back. We talked about Simmons getting back in transition. They really limited those opportunities for Golden State, as Golden State only scored 20 transition points. Next, let's look at the percentage of points for Golden State. 48% of their offense came from the paint. They were still getting into the paint. They scored 48 points in there. Like we mentioned, they shot a lot of threes, 33 of them, but they only 21% of their points came from there. That was a very low shooting percentage. Their mid-range they had to rely on more so, 18%. And then here's the thing about Golden State you have to keep in mind. As much as they got Durant, he's not the type of guy who goes and tries to get to the free throw line. That was more Westbrook's job. That's more for guys like LeBron, and now Kawhi's getting to that level. So they don't really have. They still, even with Durant, they don't have that one guy when games get choppy and messy and your threes aren't going in. Who's the guy that goes and gets the free throw line? Obviously, they didn't show it in the opening game. They only got 13 free throws. And so that's something to watch. Do they have that guy who down crunch time or when the team needs a basket, a hard-fought basket, a physical basket, they can go to somebody like that. We were talking about earlier the players. If you look at their lines, Durant took 18 shots. He made 27 of them. Made 27 points off those 18 shots. Okay. Curry took 18 shots. He made 26 points. That's a good night for him. Here's the key, though, I think, where San Antonio really did a good job defensively in their game plan. They let Draymond Green take 15 shots for 18 points. Now, obviously, 18 points is good for Draymond, but what happened to Klay Thompson? That's the thing. San Antonio, whoever was guarding Draymond, they were kind of sagging off of him, letting him shoot the three, letting him, be a little bit more of a playmaker, and they were making sure to switch on screens to try to anticipate screens and stay with Klay Thompson as much as possible to try to limit his production. So Klay was only held to 13 shots for 11 points, which is good. You don't want Durant, Klay, and Steph going off for 20-plus points because that means you're probably losing the game. If it's Draymond, then that's kind of okay. That means that he's obviously not their most lethal shooter, Golden State. So you kind of you have to pick your poison, and they picked their poison with Draymond tonight, and it paid off for San Antonio, as Klay was the one who didn't benefit from a good game offensively. Up next, the Spurs play at Sacramento against the Kings on Thursday at 9:30 p.m. It's another late night for San Antonio folks in Texas at 9:30 Central Time. The key here, I guess, to watch is DeMarcus Cousins, all-star, one of the better centers in the league. You do want to see, how does Gasol, how does Marcus and Dwayne Dedmon, how do those three guys, and David Lee, how do they match up against Cousins, And as for Gasol, he didn't play a ton of minutes against the Warriors. It's kind of looked like Timmy last year, Tim Duncan, where they're just kind of fast, their athleticism. Anytime he got switched onto Curry, it was pretty much doomsday for him. He had so much trouble trying to keep up with him. So that it might be more so on the matchups for Gasol, which teams he can play against. Traditional teams, like maybe the Kings he can play because they have traditional big guys, whereas the Warriors are a little bit too small and more hybrid, so he might not get as many minutes. So Thursday against Sacramento. Lastly, be sure to check out ProjectSpurs.com. Steven Anderson will have the recap in full for the Spurs Warriors game. And be sure to check out some of the pieces our guys are writing over at the site. Tom Petrini recently wrote about the Warriors, their strengths, their weaknesses, and some of the storylines going forward. Myself and Steven, we just did the Spurs Roundtable where we discussed Danny Green's injury. And in there we talked about some of the storylines for the Spurs going forward. Michael DeLeon interviewed Poor Man's Commish over at Warriors World, and they had a conversation pregame about what to expect in this game, and obviously by the outcome, it wasn't what a lot of people expected. And then lastly, just remember that we have a new Project Spurs membership program, so be sure to check out that article as well to see the details on that and how you can get some exclusive offers from us here at Project Spurs for the remainder of the season and going forward. So again, this is Paul Garcia signing off. Be sure to check out ProjectSpurs.com. Have a good evening.